I want to welcome you all on the second day of the Poderosa week. It has been already amazing from last week, and now as the week started, it's just being a blast for all of us involved. A lot of work, but a huge blast. And tonight we have My Queerness Is Not, which is a roundtable where we're going to talk about mostly our experiences as queer people growing up queer and the differences and similarities about our experiences, which also doesn't talk about everyone's queerness. We are just four people in the panel today in the roundtable, and I hope we can enlighten you somewhat, but it's for sure no, we're not holding the truth. There are many other different stories and ways of growing up queer that we're probably not going to approach today. So, first, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Hausvrau B Poderosa. I'm the Empress of the House of Poderosa, the European chapter of the International House of Bashir, also known as Empress of the North, also known as Miss Face. And I'm a Brazilian multi-talented artist working in many different projects and many different social projects, and I'm gonna be your moderator today. Now, I'm gonna introduce to you our guests in alphabetical order. So, first we have Adena Adeifio B. Poderosa. Adena is a teacher and aspiring educational scholar of Ghanaian descent and working in the field of inclusive educational sciences. She is a fat liberation and anti-racism advocate that puts trans-inclusive fights, the acknowledgement of marginalized people, and womanhood to the forefront of her political work. To quote Adena, "It's not my privilege to stand with my trans siblings and all queer and LGBT plus Ghanaians. It is my obligation. Having lived at the margins in one of the richest countries of this entire globe has taught me as much about classism as it has taught me about wealth and acknowledging both. I'm very thankful for the work our queer elders accomplished and grateful to be working with amazing Black women, trans POC, and non-binary people in Switzerland and beyond today." Please welcome Adnan. Give a little hello. So, continuing with our panel of guests, our main guest today is Alex Kofi Donkor. Alex is the founder and current director of LGBT Rights Ghana, a movement of mostly young LGBTQIA persons who are championing a safe, inclusive, and free society for LGBTQ persons in Ghana. He has worked on several types of research in the field of HIV/AIDS among men who have sex with men, MSM, such as the Ghana Men Study 2, Stigma Study, C5 Study, and GSI USAID Care Continuum Project. Donkor is an outspoken LGBTI activist in Ghana and a human rights advocate. To quote Alex, "I stand for human empowerment. I desire to see human lives improve. I have a keen interest in learning about people in hopes of understanding how to help. As a gay man, I have first-hand knowledge of feeling conflicted internally and being misunderstood externally. I grew up into my actual self the hard way, and today, in my adult life, I have a rather enhanced appreciation for humanity." Please welcome Alex Kofi Donkor. And our third and last guest of the day is Prince Helio Bashir Poderosa. Helio is an aspiring biologist, political educator, and the Prince of the House of Bashir Poderosa. He's fostering spaces for queer and trans people to help those affected by intersectional discrimination finding a safer space to thrive in. To quote Helio, "Only through acknowledging our differences we can find our humanity. It's my duty to challenge the norm and deconstruct the system within myself and within others. This will help us to achieve more justice regarding the distribution of resources and access." Please welcome Prince Helio Bashir Poderosa. So now that all of our guests have been introduced, and guests, if you want to say hello and good evening to everyone, please go ahead and unmute yourselves.
Hi everyone. I am happy to be here, and I want to say a very big thank you to all of you for having me here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for showing up and for listening to this talk. And it's been an honor to be a part of this. And thank you for the two beautiful souls organizing this.
Thank you so much, Helio. Alex, it's our greatest pleasure and privilege to have you here tonight. We're very, very excited. We know how much work you're doing and how hard it is at these times, but we're just so happy that you are here. Hausvrau, my love, I'm so excited for this night. Thank you so much for initiating this entire Poderosa week, for doing so much work. I really want to give you props and creds. Please give it up for Hausvrau.
Thank you so much. But as you said, is in your quotes too, it's I think it's part of our privilege that we have to use it in the right way. And I wouldn't be, I don't wish to be doing anything else of my quarantine evenings. I wish it was Poderosa week every week. But before we go on with the theme of my queerness is not, the whole week was planned because of what is happening in Ghana, of this community center for LGBTQIA plus people that was raided by the police. And Alex is the director of this group, is the director of this project. So I'm gonna pass the word now to Alex so you have a first-hand knowledge and an understanding of what is happening there. Please, Alex.
Thank you very much for having me. There is a lot of inequality and discrimination, and then also high level of abuses that queer persons go through in Ghana. A lot of times when we talk about it on various platforms that we get access to, we people don't see the seriousness to the issues that we talk about. That is also because people don't live the life that we live. So a lot of times, the queer community in Ghana here are dismissed for the things that we see and the issues that we raise on daily basis. Before the creation of the space that was shut down, was the fact that there has been high level of anti-LGBT rhetorics that continuously spewed by mostly politicians and religious leaders and politicians, and mostly spearheaded or spread across by the media space in Ghana. And when these incidents happen, a lot of times the community don't even talk about it at all. Like, you don't even hear us speak on the issues or talk about the issues that affects us, to which homophobes or anti-LGBT persons continue to um, put across. So in 2018, I decided to use a social media platform to bring together queer persons in Ghana, and then also to get us to mobilize ourselves towards championing the rights of LGBTQ persons in Ghana. And so this led to me bringing my friends together, and then also my friends also bringing other friends who appear together. So in creating the social media space, we thought it wise to actually come together from just existing on social media to now existing in person, or putting faces to the activism that we do in Ghana. And that is how come we began to put together our core values as a team, and then how best we can be able to mobilize ourselves towards championing the rights of LGBTQ persons, and then also changing the narrative that already exists in Ghana. And as part of the strategy was also to get a safe space outside of the online space that we've created for ourselves. And so we also began mobilizing towards creating this physical safe space for ourselves. So we engaged with allies and organizations and individuals that we think they can support us in getting this done. So in doing so, we had organizations like RFSU in Sweden coming to support us. We had some embassies here in Ghana. So we have the Australian Embassy, we have the European Union also coming to support us with some donations and some resources to get the place set up, to which we did that. And then, of course, after creating the space, we also decided to also open it up to the community. And just like we do for every other event, we equally created an event where the community and then also allies and other individuals who support the community can come around and check the space out, and then also access the space anytime they wish to. So this was done, to which we shared images after the event was done. And so after sharing the images is when some anti-LGBT groups picked up the images and then also began calling on the president and then also the Inspector General of Police in Ghana to close the space down. So this also led to a lot of anti-LGBT rhetorics and sentiments all over. And then, so moving forward, the place was raided by the police, and then also some journalists and some traditional leaders and some national security persons. And then also the landlord of the space to which we hired. And so as at now, we are unable to access the space. It has been closed down, and then also we are able to even access the things in the space. And so this goes on to also reinforce the already hostile environment that LGBTQ persons go through. And the fact that anytime we talk about these issues, it is dismissed on daily basis. The fact that we don't even get a listening ear to the issues that we face in the country. The fact that the media is very hostile towards us. The fact that government is equally hostile to the point of calling for anti-LGBTQ legislation and all of that. The fact that the parliament in Ghana is against us, and currently, as I speak, they are actually planning on laying a bill before the parliament to criminalize LGBTQ persons and then also criminalize the advocacy for LGBTQ persons in Ghana. So this is how hostile the environment in Ghana has been all throughout.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think this, because I guess not everyone that is coming to participate on the Poderosa Week and to listen has maybe had the time to research and understand better the situation. And I think even for me and Adena, who researched on it, to have it like from you, it's the point of view of who was there, of who made it all possible, and who went through all of the consequences. Unfortunately, there were consequences because of the retrograde mindsets. So I heard that there's a video to be shared also before we get into the roundtable. Correct me if I'm wrong, Adena?
Yes, exactly. So I think it could be nice also to have some material that you have offered to share with us, Alex. And we would like to invite you to share your videos with us. And you can do so by sharing the screen. Let me know if I can assist you.
Okay. I don't know how people here would take this video, but this video is very, 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 very disturbing. It actually shows the gruesome nature in which LGBTQ persons go through in this country. Like I mentioned earlier, it is very graphic, and so I would admonish people who wouldn't want to watch how graphic it is to switch their camera off or something in case you don't want to see all of those graphic images. So with that said,
thank you very much. Just quickly, we really appreciate you. So what Alex is doing, they're giving a trigger warning. This means everybody who cannot see graphic imagery of violence should return in 3 minutes. So it will be, you can come back at 2020, okay? And for all the other audience, please note that you might have to discuss the things after. So we will also be here. Alex will have to go back to work, but we will also be here after the talk. Thank you.
yes, so these are the gruesome videos. We have a whole lot of videos, and these are even videos that are actually recorded by the perpetrators themselves, after which they share these images on various social media platforms to further disgrace the victims. And there are even more videos and even more disturbing ones that we still have. And a lot of times, these acts are perpetrated with impunity. And the police do not follow up on some of these cases to which we report. And interestingly enough, there are even other times where the police themselves also discriminate against LGBTQ persons at the time of even reporting issues of abuse and discrimination to them.
Thank you very much for sharing the work you have been doing. And I think this is something that, unfortunately, it's not, how can I put that? It's not a unique situation. We know this happens everywhere, but I think it's good for us to remind the privileges we have, because also I know that in Ghana, same-sex relationships are still illegal. So there are even legal bases for the protection of such aggressors. So thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, I think it's a good reminder for all of us of the place that we are now.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Alex, very much for sharing this and also for being so open about all the things that you have talked about. And because we also want to put it in a context of racism, I think it's very important also to talk about, especially for the wide audience that we have here, to make it very clear that this is not a single issue. So to understand that this is not like a thing of African homophobia or something like this. There is a lot of violence, but a lot of people also experience a lot of racist anti-LGBTQI violence. And I also think it's very important to acknowledge that. And also, if you see this imagery, that you can understand it's not something that is very far and you don't have to deal with this, but it's something immediate and it's something that is happening every day. And these are images from Ghana, but these things are happening at so many spaces, as Hausvrau said already. And Alex, I think it's very important also to maybe you can frame also the entire work that you are doing, because as you said already, it's like it's a lot of things that are so conflicted, and the perpetrators themselves, they're taking these video shots. And I think it's also important to hear and listen to the work that you are doing constantly now with these kind of situations, but also with the people who have suffered this kind of violence.
Thank you very much. So the reason actually for even creating the safe space was just so community members can easily identify with the space and then be able to share issues of abuse and discrimination that they go through on a daily basis. Because the truth is that a lot of times when people go through these abuses, they are unable to report the issue to the police. That is also because they feel the police might discriminate against them. And then also they are also unable to find help, or they are unable to find um, support, or they are able to get a support system, also because they also do not know where to get these support systems from, or this support from. And so one of our main goal was to create a space where community members can easily get access to and be able to report issues of abuse to, be able to access psychosocial support, be able to access legal support, be able to access trainings and workshops that will empower the community economically and all of that. That is also, just like I mentioned earlier, because the discrimination exhibits itself or manifests itself in so many areas, a lot of times the community is also lacking uh, 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 um, daily support or daily needs. There are some community members who can't even afford uh, food. There are some community members who don't even have work to do. So one of our strategies was also to create a platform where they can be able to access all these trainings and workshops that would empower them to economically strengthen themselves and then also be economically viable. So we have followed up a lot of times on issues of abuses. Personally, I have been to the police station so many times to report issues of abuse. Even though we face discrimination from the police, they are also the government agency that have been given the mandate to protect us. So in as much as we face discrimination from them, they are still the same people that we have to go to also seek justice from. So we have no other option but to deal with them. And and that is also one aspect to which we also keep continuously engaged with police, and then also some government agencies and departments to also get them to understand what it means to be LGBT and what the advocacy and the activism is about. Also reinforcing and reiterating the fact that these are human rights issues that we are talking about. There are some community members who don't even have access to basic health needs. And so we are also able to connect these community members to um, clinics and hospitals that are LGBTQ friendly, such that they don't go and experience discrimination from other hospitals or other clinics that they find themselves. So when it comes to the work that we do, it is mostly to the community and mostly looking at the needs of the community on daily basis, from legal to economic to psychosocial to welfare and every other thing. Apart from that too, we also equally do the activism and the advocacy, also trying to challenge laws and systems that discriminate against the community. And that is how come, even though we are going through all of this violence and all of these abuses, we are still unapologetic about who we are, and we are still pushing and still soldiering on for the change that we deserve. Because if we don't do it, if we don't stand up for ourselves, then it means that nobody is there to fight for us. So it is difficult. It's been challenging. Personally, my images have been thrown out there by the media to the general public. There are other colleagues whose images have been put out there by the media. So currently, as I'm speaking to you now, I am actually in a safe space or safe house because I can't also be in the public because my images has been thrown out there so much so that the public is like really, really angry and very agitated and actually have called for very violent rhetorics and violent words and asking. I mean, you can imagine words like, let's kill them, let's beat them, let's stone them, all the abusive and very demeaning words that you can think about. All of this has been said, and a lot of the public are like also like very angry And so we also have to find ourselves in a safe space where we can continuously do the work that we have put ourselves out there to do. So it is difficult, it's been challenging, but we also cannot give up, because if we give up, it also means that we are giving up on humans and we are giving up on human rights.
Thank you so much for sharing your work with us, Alex. I think there are many things that you mentioned there that, having lived in Brazil, being Brazilian myself, I can relate to many of those things. I've worked in such community centers in my hometown, and I understand the necessity of them for many reasons. And I think to the topic also that we have for tonight, it really relates on the sense of when we talk about similarities and differences. The thing, for example, with hard access to medical care, how people of this experience normally um, have any prejudice against their bodies and against their experience. So now and have Adena and Elio bringing out some more information. I also don't want to make this a beautiful change and pretend like everything is okay, because there's a reason for why we're doing this week, and it is to support a group that is really in need right now. So it's incredible that you bring to us the reality of what it is, so that we can really step out of our bubble for a second. And I talk fast, so I'm gonna try to slow down. I'm sorry. So to start and just bring a couple ideas into what we could talk about tonight, I've gathered twice on my Instagram. I just asked the question for people to complete the phrase, "My queerness is not." And I'm gonna read out the answers that we get. There's some that are similar, but I still want to read all of them because it's not that many, and I think sometimes a different construction of words can reach people differently. So, my queerness is not for beginners, anyone else's business. My queerness is not rainbows, sparkles, and unicorns. My queerness is not for others to judge. It's not how people say it has to be. It's not every layer of my identity. My queerness is not up for debate. My queerness is not a token, and it's not your fetish. My queerness is not something to make fun of. My queerness is not binary, a fetish, or a choice before I decide on being homo or heterosexual. And now my two personal favorites. My queerness is not something that I should hide for someone else's comfort. And my queerness is not anyone's to be judged, defined, or any other patriarchal, heteronormative shit. This is my all-time favorite. And now I would open maybe to Helio and Adena or Alex, if any of those phrases really touches you in a specific way, or how can you can relate to those, or what your queerness is not, if you want to bring also a new point.
Thank you so much, Hausvrau, also for your work that you do on Instagram. I think it's a really great platform to start with this kind of sentence structure so people can really go into it. And what really resonated with me was the part of tokenism. So especially now, as we can have a lot of merch, we can buy a lot of things, and it's becoming more fancy. I noticed that for some people, yes, it's really opening up a lot of space, and which is amazing. But I think for many people, and also for myself, I figured that um, not having the opportunity to really be out and proud sometimes makes it very difficult. And also a lot of white queers also talking about or not reading me as a queer person, things like this. So I think I would add to this, my queerness is not always visible.
I think I would like to add to that where Adna left off. My queer is not always visible, but it is also not to be defined through straight people. Because I think what is currently at play is the thing of the majority is naming and putting the minority into boxes as if it was something unnatural or something that needed to be labeled as a warning. And I think we are completely natural, and therefore my queerness is not there to be consumed or judged by straight people. It is not the only thing that I am, but it is something that you will never fully understand if you're not queer yourself.
It is incredible all the quotes that you all shared, because and I absolutely agree, and I love all the quotes that were mentioned here. And to add on to that, I would say that my queerness is not um, for political or social or economic weaponization. My queerness is my life. So thank you very much.
This what you said, I can relate directly a lot because in a different project that I work at, we talk a lot about queer migration. And whenever we have an interview, this things always comes of what queer migration means to you. And to me, is waking up, is getting out of the house, is taking a shower, and even sleeping. I'm still queer. I'm still an immigrant. So I think this is a huge point of like my queerness is my life, and that's what it is. And talking about life, I had an interesting conversation with I'm gonna mention two conversations that I had. One which was with Adena about the roundtable today, when we talked about the my queerness is not for beginners. And then we were discussing on this topic of, I know that the person that did this comment, who's a friend of mine, was coming from the point of, I'm very out and proud as queer, and people sometimes cannot take it. So it's not for beginners. And then we were in this conversation about maybe not using this so strongly because of all the people that are not outed yet. And I believe most of us had a moment in childhood where we were not outed. And then another conversation that I had with Princess Adonis, also from the House of Bashir Poderosa, was about sometimes small things that you do or that you just remember, or a picture that you find in your mom's place, that you remember something that you did as a child that was super queer, but you somehow locked away from your memory. And then when you look again, you unlock those memories of a time that you were already showing yourself as a queer child, but you were controlled or you were taken down. So I would like to ask, I'll just choose someone randomly. I'll pass the word to Helio now, and then we can move on, just so we start with different people. What were things that, if you have any memories like this that you have unlocked, and if there are moments in your childhood that you sometimes remember and you're like, damn, I was super queer and I didn't realize. So please.
I think that's a really cool way to look at it because I was born like that. Like I do believe I was born like that. And coming from a right-wing Christian conservative background, the option wasn't there. So I think it wasn't even so much a moment, it was more that I always thought I was a effeminate man. And I was convinced of it. I was like, great. And I remember when I was allowed for the first time on YouTube, I found Rocky Horror Picture Show, and I was so thrilled by it. And I know that this movie also partially is very problematic, but 10-year-old me was not very aware of that. And I was so thrilled. I showed to my grandmother, was like, this is amazing, right? Like Dr. Frankenfurter doing his sweet transvestite thing. I was all for it. And my grandma was like, that's not good. That's a man dressed as a woman. And I was like, wait, I'm a man dressed as a woman, right? I didn't understand what she meant. She was referring wrongly to a transgender female, while I identify as transmasculine, but I was like, wait, am I wrong? And I think as I started to come out to myself and later start out to come other people, this was the first thing where I was like, it should have clicked with you back then, right? That you're a man dressed as a woman. So I think for me, this is like the first memory that I really have of queerness in my life.
I also happen to come from a conservative Christian background, right? Just like you. And so growing up, right from when I began to know who I am, I was born right into church. So my whole life I have grown up in church. But of course, also growing up, I was effeminate growing up, one. The other thing was also that I was also like sexually attracted to a person of the same sex. I really felt that I was attracted to males rather than female. And that was something that I kept suppressing and praying and hoping that it will go away. Right. So right from growing up, I knew that I was different. I look at all my other siblings and I can tell to myself, I am definitely queer. But I came to my realization and acceptance of who I am from when I was 20. So even though I knew I was different, I never accepted my difference until I grew up to my actual self. That's when now I accepted who I am, and I am like very, very happy for the opportunity of not just listening to what society had to tell me from growing up, but then also the fact that I looked it out for myself. I took time to study myself, to also understand who I am and having to accept who I am and happy with myself. And as a matter of fact, I say to myself that if should I die and come back, I will definitely want to come back as a queer person. And if anything at all, I will even love a little bit more of the queer portion. Just make it a little bit extra. All right, so thank you very much.
Well, actually, what you said really resonated with me. Let me just jump in right there. I feel like it's so different for me because I was not brought up in a very religious household. But you mentioned this strong feeling of praying for queerness to go away. So, what I felt very strongly related to was like this idea of the missing role models, which is why I'm rooting so much for queer elders, especially as they do not grow very old in most cases. So, and for me, it was very interesting when you posed this question, Hausvrau, the first thing that came to mind for me was like being neurodivergent and always being, in a way different from others or feeling very different. And then all of a sudden I was like, okay, wait, that's not it. And then just learning so much about my identity, also within a very short amount of time. Like we have to grow up so fast and we have to learn like within such a contracted amount of time. I was like, wow, okay, this was just possible because we have this extra spark, as you say, Alex. We are extra, extra.
I mean, we certainly are, and as Alex said, if anything to change in the next life, just make it even queerer. Just, just give it more sparkle. um, this thing that you mentioned, and Alex mentioned and also Helio mentioned, and I grew up. Adena said that she didn't have this so much, but I also grew up in a very religious household. Church every Saturday night, not Sunday for some reason. Um, I've had people in my family that have been very people in my family that didn't expect and were actually very open and very understanding and like if you don't feel bad, God loves you anyway. But people in my family that up until today say that I have the devil in my body, which I would like to know because as long as I know, I'm sleeping alone in my bed. So if there's someone there with me, please consent. Um, so uh, so my question is now in relation to family, and if you don't want to share, because family can be a very strong topic, and we don't.
Gay. But the other interesting thing is I have a niece who, on that day when my brother outed me, she actually came to my defense. She was actually the one who was even talking more than I was. She was even defending me more than I was. And so she was just telling my brother, listen, if he is gay, what is your problem? What do you want from him? He's gay, get over it, you know. And it was surprising because I didn't expect her to rally around me like that. I mean, I really didn't think that she knew much about my sexuality. Comparing it to all my other siblings, I thought maybe she didn't know much. And the fact that she was even way younger, and at the time she was like 15 years, and for her to have come to my defense in that manner up to now is still heartwarming and happy to know that when all of this was happening, she was right there in my defense, and she even defended me more than I could even defend myself. And I've always loved her for that, and I I think she is my number one ally. And even when all of these incidents was happening, these issues was going on, she was that one person who called me and said, Kofi, you know what? Everything that you're going through is going to be okay. I just want you.
So your niece is badass. Please send her our warmest love next time you see her. um, I think for me is it's I had nobody that came to my defense. I outed myself more out of respect towards my parents because the world is small, and I was like, you know what, like I was out to everybody but my family, so I might as well tell you before anybody else tells you at church or whatever. Um, I think for me, the light of hope was that my parents have now learned what a transgender person is. Because when I first told my parents, listen, I'm trans, there was a question, you're trans what? Because there has not yet been the realization that there's trans masculine people. In my parents' minds, there was only trans women. And so I think that's kind of the light of hope that I see, that they now know, and I think the rest might take some extensive amount of time, but I'm still optimistic.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think it's such a great way also to empower yourself, like to be really clear about and also honest. Like it takes such a huge amount of courage, but then also to be like, hey, I'm just gonna be honest because you're gonna find out anyway, because I'm not hiding no more. So I'm done hiding. So I really love this kind of way of putting it. And I think it's a very weird way, like also speaking from a space where, I mean, we have a lot of media and stuff like that. So always having this idea of having an outing or something, that it will be like this huge party, like the gender bender reveal party, I don't know. And then it's going to be huge and everybody will be shocked. But a lot of people that they're not that shocked. So they have this notion, and as you said, with your cousin and all these kind of family members, sometimes it's just about also how outspoken you are, because people sometimes they feel and read you much in a more specific way than you actually perceive it. So sometimes you don't understand how much you actually, how many keys you're giving out. And also like entering a room and you're like, okay, you and you, let's go for a walk. Like, okay, I see you. And these kind of things, I really like this also then, to not having to hide and being very clear, and still having to do a lot of education on your parents still. Like you will always have to do that, but being, having them accompany you on your path in the best possible way that they can, speaking from the positions that they hold.
Thank you very much for all the contributions on this topic. Now we have a question from Ana Sobral for Alex. Anna would like to ask if you have any queer role models, specifically from Ghana or West Africa.
So just like Adena mentioned, when it comes to queer role models, um, it's been difficult, right? That is also because a lot of times, like the older generations do not get to the point where the younger generation are able to like know them and then also learn from them. Growing up, because of how conservative our society is, it also meant that there was no queer person that boldly came out or stood out there that they are queer. And so it also meant that there wasn't any role model. As at the time I was growing up, if anything at all, it is usually in the negative light that you do hear some of this conversation being said of. So I think that the responsibility falls on us and then also my colleagues and all the other generation that exists now to create that platform where every other queer person growing up in Ghana will see any one of us and then also be able to relate and then also find leadership or motivation from us and then also be able to grow up or learn from. So I didn't have one actually growing up. I didn't.
On that note, and connecting to what Anna said before, since we have no other questions, I'm going to continue the roundtable. And if another question appears, I will bring it in. The thing with queer elders, I think it's a very important point, and I think what Alex said, it's huge. It's something also that motivates my work a lot. I didn't have a role, a queer role model growing up, so I would like to be this queer role model for other people, and I think it's also um, an interesting thing to think that we need to also support uh, people like Alex, who is becoming a huge role model in Ghana, and how also for, if we think on the matters of like queer elders, of course there's a different knowledge that we don't have, that those people have lived so long. But for someone who's maybe 10 or 12, us on 2030s, we are somehow their elders, you know. So I think it's also important, especially when we are outspoken people on such issues, to remember that we are also being someone's role model. And not that we have to be perfect, we are not perfect, and I think it's important to show vulnerability. But it's a huge point, I think, that for us to support the people doing the work now, and to be very, very honest, to support the people doing the work now so we can in the future have queer elders that are not only white gay men. And yes, I said it. So there's another question, which is also to Alex. Um, if you could share how queerphobia was an import from colonialism, which is also a topic that we're going to be discussing a lot on Thursday. But Alex, please give us your point of view on how queerphobia has been imported to Ghana during colonial times.
Yeah, so the current laws that politicians and also some opinion leaders use as the basis to which they discriminate against the community are actually the British colonial laws that were introduced to Ghana at the time where they were colonizing Ghana. And let me also mention that at the same time where they were colonizing Ghana with all of these laws, they also introduced Christianity. And in introducing Christianity, um, the Christianity grew up in Ghana, you know, and so a lot of times when you listen closely to the arguments that anti-LGBT persons say, they're actually saying it from the point of religion. So they are mostly looking at it from the Christian religion, the fact that the Bible says it's an abomination and a man who lies with man has to die. And also the fact that the current homophobia that is being spearheaded and that is being pushed in Ghana are actually being pushed by these Christian groups who have been influenced also by these American far-right evangelical groups. And so we adopting the British colonial law as one aspect. And so here we are talking about the section 104 of our criminal code, which was like whole picked from the British colonial law and then used as part of our law. And then also the Christian values of what is good and what is bad, and basically the Christian binary and the control in which these groups have and hold towards Ghanaians. And so these are the two places where queerphobia mostly is coming from. But like I mentioned earlier, it is mostly coming from religious folks, and in this case, mostly from Christian groups.
I can totally relate to that also in terms of Brazilian colonization and how most of the attacks come from the religious groups and it's honestly at this point I don't even understand it anymore. It's so not funded and anyway. The material I prepared for the talk, I wanted to go because I believe very much on this on the side of hope. So I have some questions for later that I think it's more on like us thinking how to move forward and how to educate. And I would like you, which I think is a huge important thing for other people that are here also. We talk a lot about needing allies who are not from the queer community. And it's a lot of work for us to have to explain every time. So I think it would be good for us to maybe each one of us share a point that we think could be good for allyship. And then the people that get this information can also pass it on to their friends, one of those ideas. Before there's a question here, so I'm going to go to this question and then go to the one I had prepared. What are your views on queerness religion? Do you think religion, specifically Christianity, but others too, needs to be abolished if we want true equality for queer people, or do you see a way around that? That is the big question.
Yes, I believe that every individual have their rights, which includes rights to religion. You can't take the fact that people believe in faith or have faith in certain things and want to practice this faith. Where my concern is where people use their religion as the basis to which one should exist or not exist, or actually using their religion to violate on other people. That is where, for me, I draw the line. You can believe in whatever religion you want to believe in, and it is okay to believe in all of those things. And it is equally okay if another person doesn't believe in that. And for me, I always say there is two things when it comes to religion, and in this case, Christianity. And I always say that if you are Christian and you want to find all the reasons in Christian belief to love someone, you will find all the reasons within Christianity to love someone. It is also in the same light that if you also want to find all the reasons within Christianity to hate someone, you will find all the reasons within Christianity to hate someone. At the end of the day, the choice to whether to want to love or want to hate is always at the individual's disposal, and it's always a choice for every individual. How you choose to act and react towards someone is always up to you. And so how some Christians exhibit and portray the hate and the disgust towards other human beings equally shows the path in which they have chosen, and which is the path of hate and the path of violence against other humans.
I personally agree very much with this statement. I think it's we don't need to abolish religion, but we need people to understand that their personal choice of religion does not give them any right to say if someone else's identity is or not valid. I think the problem is taking religion as a fixed thing, but I think it also comes from very Catholic, Christian, and evangelic groups that comes from this um, whole process of imperialism and colonialism. So I think they don't even understand very much that there are other even religions. You know, they are even they have prejudice against other religions. So I think the problem is to take it as a fixed construct and not accept people's individualities and different choices. I think Helio wanted to share something.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to share two things on the religion. One is also what Alex said, right? Men lie with men shall die. That's actually a prime example how even the Bible itself was heavily colonized, because it is actually a mistake that was made when translating the Bible from Hebrew into German, because it was more convenient to the current political situation that was at that time within Germany and the German-speaking part of Europe, because what it actually said in Hebrew was it's forbidden to lie with small boys, so it's actually against pedophilia. Just to add that, I think it's very important to take religion also with a little bit of caution, and to distinguish between church as an institution that is heavily instrumentalized and used to further solidify the system, and to separate that from religious beliefs that humans use as guidance within life and as forming community. And I just think if you can keep that in mind and look at different perspectives, I don't think it's particularly necessary to abolish religion, but it is important to deconstruct the origin of it a little bit.
I think that that is a huge point in terms of understanding the institution and the spiritual side of it. I think it's and I would just say that I don't think they made a mistake translating. I think they made a choice. They made a choice to change that. Let's not call it a mistake. There was purpose. So we are getting also other messages. So Serena is sharing, and then I'm gonna get to another question that we had before, but I think Serena is saying about something related here, and then the other one talks about role models, and then we go back to that topic. So 15 years ago in Ghana, Serena met a traditional priest who was married to a male spirit and thus dressed and lived as a man always on a specific weekday. And the priest was not just accepted but honored in her rural community. So I think this goes also to show um, the double standards, if I understood the story right, of when it's accepted and when it's not. Thank you for sharing, Serena. And I will now go also to the question we had before from Kara Sunoten, for Alex and for all of us. If not queer models as such, I was wondering, are there stories, legends, or tales that you remember from mythology or something like this that have queerish or gender sexually ambiguous characters? Um, Before I pass it on, I would say that from my side, I think I've had this sometimes with cartoons. I remember very much in the Powerpuff Girls. I don't know the name in English, but the character that is symbolized kind of as the devil or something like this, I think is called He. Even I don't remember. I don't remember in Portuguese, and I don't know how it is in English. But I think that him. Uh, I think that was a very feminine character, but that was still seen somehow as a male character. So for me, that was like, yes. Anyone wants to bring their point on this?
Yeah. When it comes to, and here specifically Ghana, there are diversities, and there has always been diversity and also tolerance when it comes to the African tradition. Unfortunately, because of mostly the influence of Christianity, these traditions and diversity and tolerance has been embraced with time. And so currently, the current atmosphere or the current belief of Ghanaians are making it seem as if that has always been the belief and the traditions when it comes to Ghana or culture and then tradition. And in this case, they are making Christianity seem as though that has always been the culture and the traditions of Ghana. But that is not the case. There are remnants of this diversity and tolerance and inclusion within the Ghanaian spaces. Just like the comments here rightly mentioned, when it comes to even our traditional worship, and in this case, we are talking about the those we called fetish priests and fetish priestesses. When it comes to those traditional and those spiritual worship, it is believed that you can be a male, all right, you can be somebody who is physically male, but then spiritually or your spiritual worship is the opposite sex, or you are a priest or a priestess to the opposite sex, and for that matter, you act and react in that opposite manner. To the extent that even some of these priests and priestesses are revered and actually have partners who are of their same sex within their traditional spaces and traditional settings within Ghana. And in this case, we are talking about when they pick places like the Ghana areas of Accra, we have the Wulomo and then the Wok Wanches. So these are all fetish priests and priestesses that exhibit those characteristics that I earlier mentioned. If you go to places within the Cape Coast areas and in the central regions of Ghana, that's the fancy aspect of Ghana, there are also those experiences there. Apart from that, currently, even in the northern part of Ghana, there is this dance called Bamaya dance. And in this Bamaya dance, in the northern part of Ghana, the males or the men dress as women to perform these dance and these traditional celebrations. And so I think, and these practices go on up even as at now in these places. If you go to those places, you will see the male dressed as female to do this dance to appease the land and then also the place in which they find themselves. So when it comes to queerness or diversity, it has always existed within the Ghanaian systems and then the Ghanaian settings. But then unfortunately, all of these practices and all of these beliefs were demonized or were seen as evil or were seen as bad when Christianity was introduced to Ghana. And so a lot of people begin to shun away from that and then begin to also adapt Christianity. And in this case, Christianity always has a binary. It's either you are a male or you are a female. There is no other room for diversity and then also inclusion. And people who express or exhibit this diversity and this inclusion were seen as demon and as bad. And that's how come even queer people, as it stands now, are being demonized by all of these religious groups and all of that. So diversity, as far as Africa is concerned, has always existed. But unfortunately, the binary within the religious group is what has pushed this diversity to the background and then also made it seem as though it is evil and it is bad and it is dangerous to society. So yeah.
Thank you so much. I really like to add on and really go into this topic also of the erasure, I think, of queer figures like in mythology. And I think one figure also to refer to this question that could be interesting also to do some research and do some follow-up is Opatala. I don't know if I pronounce it correctly, like the child of God. And Obatala does not have a permanent gender, so it's a figure that is androgynous, and it's a figure that also has a very a trans quality to it in this kind of sense and understanding. And there are also figures like also in the Bible where you can understand that these figures do not have a permanent kind of set binary. As Alex put it so beautifully, it's exactly this idea, and the binary continues. Like it's not only gender, but it's also personality traits. So you're either good or bad. So there is no in between. There is no any kind of spectrum. And I think this is also what kind of detaches certain things from the humanness of religion. Like religion and spirituality is something that we should embrace, and it has to have this humanness to it. And when you are functioning in these very strict and crass binaries, exactly, it is not possible because we are so complex as humans. We cannot work and function in any kind of binary system.
I think also continuing what you're saying, I feel like society nowadays has a strong need for binaries in the sense of even when you start uh, people that then are becoming allies and start understanding cisgender and transgender, but then they create again this binary of cisgender and transgender. So and what you said, it's, I mean, you just put it perfectly. It takes away from the complexity of 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 the human body, of the human experience.
Exactly, and I think it's the very existence that makes us so incredibly also fragile, because if we understand this kind of set in stone kind of rules, we lose this contact to our fragility and to our emotional side. And I think this, it makes it easier then to be very strict and harsh about these kind of rules, and also to kind of make it possible even for people to wanting to harm people, you know. And this is why I think it really needs to become more complex, as you say, Hausfrau, but also what you're saying, Helio, to be very, very critical of how we are processing the input. So is it really what, like, are we reading this when kind of words, who actually did these translations, like to stay curious and very critical of what we are believing.
To stay alert, right? Helio wanted to share something before.
No, I think I would just add on to the discussion of binary and creating binary categories. I think it's very important to acknowledge that we always talk, like, especially within activism, of deconstruction, and the binary needs to be deconstructed, but you must acknowledge that within yourself, your neurology, the very thing that makes you think and makes you you, is a binary process to a large degree. And I think as humans, we're so incredibly complex that we have the gift to challenge that and to think in smaller binaries and to think in more differentiated ways, so we can grasp more and think more. And I would just encourage everybody to not just consume knowledge and consume other people's ideas, but also to take some time, if you have it, or some energy, to spin the thought further yourself, and to go into that for yourself.
To find your own understanding of this theory and this knowledge that you were acquiring. That's a huge point. True. To really check that with yourself, see how you understand it, and then have this secured as your knowledge and not just something that you gathered somewhere. Um, as it is already 9:25, and I don't want to make it a super long, I'm gonna head to our last question, and I'm gonna make a little double question in this, but they are connected. So I would like to know if there is any specific thing that you have realized that you developed as a queer person, um, in terms of hmm, in terms of protection, or in terms of so you can assimilate, and what would be something that you would tell non-queer people that they could do to become better allies, and they could be related, so something that people could do so that you don't have to use this mechanism that you developed. um, I would start myself, just to pass it on to your hands after. um, I feel like one thing that I realized I have a big issue sometimes if I'm not in a good day is going to the supermarket or buying food out, just because of the way people look at me when they see I have no brows and when they see my painted nails. And on that sense, I feel like it's so small that people look at me because I have painted nails. And who needs brows? So that is what I think in terms of that. And I think one huge thing about allyship, I think we should think of how can we give people tips on how to ally and not how to be an ally, because it's not a noun, it's a verb. You have to
Thank you.
continuously do it. So what are actions that can be done? And one thing that I need to get out of the way is also people feel like sometimes it's disrespectful to ask for pronouns. On my personal view, I think that is a huge sign of respect. If someone comes to me and before the conversation goes on, they ask for my pronouns so they can talk to me, and if they have to talk about me to someone else, they will not misgender me. And I think this is already a huge point. And actually, now in terms of allyship, I don't have any other good points in mind, so I'm gonna pass it on. Who has something to add? I don't know.
Well, what you can do is you can pay money, and I'm very serious, because not like just for today and this week, but in general. I think we are like, talking from a Swiss perspective, we have a very weird relationship with money in many different ways. And I think being more verbal about money and or any kind of transactions, it can help and make the discourse easier. And even with really being like having a very clear stand of paying labor from queer people and paying them well, is something that I would really ask straight people, and especially white people, also to consider. um, it's not that you are buying a certain knowledge, education, or that you are buying maybe time with a person. Think of reparation. I think it's very important. So pay for all the other people that have encountered, that this person has encountered, and that has mistreated them, that has not paid them well. So I try, like, as a cis person, I try to always keep this in mind, being like, hey, do I really want to be exhausting for a trans person or for a non-binary person? Or maybe can I do this research myself? And then maybe can I have very specific questions, not like in general, oh, can you help me being less cis and less ignorant about being cis? But hey, I have this specific question, and I did this and this research, and now I have my 3 Monatsloon, and I want to do something. Can you tell me what to do? And then the person can be like, hey, yes, I can tell you where you can spend your money, and also buy from queer and especially from Black people.
I want to add something to that before Helio and Alex say something. Give them long-term jobs if you have the opportunity. I think that is a huge point also, because buying something from them or giving them a one gig, it's good and you should continue on doing, and if that's your only opportunity, do the max that you can. But I think many times also becomes we go back to the beginning. My queerness is not a token. It becomes the queer person in the group, and that person is paid, and the person can survive that month. But what about next month? So if you have the opportunity to also support maybe queer people on getting a job on a company, on getting a job on a university, on getting a long-term contract, I think this is important. Then you don't even have to give the job or buy the product, but your support so that they can have at least a 1 year contract somewhere, or 3 months, or something that is more than a weekend with a payment, but that they can support themselves on the long term.
Thank you
Helio,
so much for adding. That's so important. I really want to stress this again. If people in power are realizing how damaging it is to discuss things like this and not even make it a habit, I think it's so great. Thank you for adding this, Hausvrau.
I think what I had in mind kind of writes on the back of that. Give us long-term jobs, not just within where trans and queer people are more expected, so the entertainment industry, arts, etc. Make us your doctor, make us your motherfucking lawyer, your president. And don't expect us to conform to your idea of what we're supposed to be like. And it's hard to get there. And most of us don't even start getting there because we don't expect to make it, or because we lack the resources to get started. So you might not be the person that's going to hire me when I'm a professor, but you might be the person that helps me keep my back free when I have to study for exams. So support those who just get started, and don't support us when we've toughened up and fought to the top, because as a white man, it's going to be relatively easy for me to fight to the top. But support those who have a much harder time to get started, not just when we're there and presentable for you.
Thank you all very much for sharing this. And for me, when it comes to safety and security, and also finding peace from whatever that happens within society, maybe what I'm going to say will be far overreaching, but I think that as human beings, we always want the best for ourselves. And so it is for every other human being. Just as you want the best for yourself is the same reason why another person also wants the best for themselves. So it is just up to us as humans to always be good to our own selves. If you are good to yourself, then you'll be good to another person. If you love yourself, then you equally have to show this love to another person. I don't have to be looking at my back. I don't have to be thinking that somebody might want to hurt me. I don't have to think that I have to struggle to survive or even live or have a job or anything. It is up to us as human beings, and the onus falls on us as human beings to be good to ourselves, to our surrounding, and everything that we have access to. If we are well aware of ourselves and we are well in charge of having to be good to ourselves, then I am pretty sure that a lot of the struggles that is going on all over the world wouldn't happen. And if anything at all, life will be good for all of us, irrespective of wherever we find ourselves. So, yeah, it's up to us to be good humans every day.
Thank you so much. It's so precious. I think something that I really want to stress also with what you said, Alex, is believe trans and believe queer people. They know the best how their body works. They know the best what they need. They know what kind of support they need. And having this idea of yeah, especially like in academia or other very violent spaces where people have the idea that they can judge how the lived reality is for certain groups. This is just unbelievable, and I really want this to stress this, especially people doing research or people who have the power to write books, really to give the mic to the marginalized people themselves, because they can speak for themselves. You don't need to speak for anybody else. So I really see and hear you, and I think it's so important what you're saying.
Thank you so much for all the contributions. I think from what Adena said, and Serena also shared something with me before in the chat. I would add for us to think also, and I also talked with Adena about this, and that's a conversation that I have been having with myself also. A lot is talked about lately in terms of self-care, and not much is talked about in terms of community care. Because no one is in this world alone. As independent as you are, you don't produce your own food. You didn't build the place you live in. So it's important for us to think also. I think relating to what Alex said, like, be good to yourself, put yourself in a good place, and then do good to others, because then others will do good to you, and we will collectively help each other. And now connecting to what Serena said, that the feminist groups in Ghana have been standing up for homophobia. And I think, like, last year and this year with the Black Lives Matter movement, and now the huge increase in Asian hate, it's important for us to understand that. And there has been many questions about, oh, but did they support Black Lives Matter before or something like, and this shouldn't be a question. We shouldn't be fighting amongst our different marginalized groups. We should unite against capitalism, against the patriarchy, against colonialism, imperialism that still lives on and affects all of our lives. So I think what all of you said is believe people, hear people from what Anna said, and be good to you so you can be good to others. And honestly, I'm incredibly honored to have shared this 1 hour and a half of my life with both of you, with all of you, both of you, with all three of you, and with everyone else. We're 35 participants at the moment. Thank you so much to the speakers. Your sharings and taking your time to open up in this level is incredible, and I hope that this could have brought some light of hope to everyone watching, and that for those of you watching, share that with people in your daily life. Share what you learned here, take that with yourself, and I'm gonna open out for the speakers to say a last goodbye.
Well, Thank you so much, Hausfrau. I just want to really express, like, also on an emotional level, how deeply grateful I am. Also, that I met you, Alex. We have had on such short notice. You made it happen that we could do this entire thing. I'm so grateful. Helio, you mean so much to me, and it's very, like, also as a fat woman, it's so important to know that you have my back, and we do a lot of things. You are incredible with also what you said about conquering the non-queer spaces. This is so important. And Hausfrau, I'm very grateful for the work that you do, like tonight. Yeah, it's a lot. Thank you so much.
Yeah, there's many thank yous to say to, I think, Hausfrau, you've been such a love and light in my life, and your queerness just encourages me to go forward. So your work is amazing. And also Adna, like you're my sister here, you're my ally also in this very straight city of Ben. So I'm just so grateful we got to meet, and I'm looking forward to all the future things we have. But I think most importantly, like, give it up for Alex. Like, he is in the middle of it. We're watching from afar. We're only donating money. Like, to have the energy and the time to show up when you're going through this in your life is incredibly brave, incredibly generous. And I'm just honored that you let us support us, and sending you lots of love, and please take care of your precious self.
Oh, it's been incredibly heartwarming. First of all, Adna, thank you very much for reaching out and having to engage with you and having to also share with you. It's been incredibly amazing. I thank you very much for the opportunity of having to share the struggles that we go through and then also the joy that we equally go through. Hasra, you've been amazing. Thank you very much. I believe we are family already, and I can't wait for the engagement that we are going to have in the coming days and the incredible life that we're going to have even after today. Um, Hilio, thank you very much. It's been amazing engaging with you and every other person here. Um, and I want to also thank everyone who came here to engage with us in today's conversation. Um, I believe that irrespective of wherever we find ourselves, we are fighting the same patriarchy, we are fighting the same challenge everywhere we find ourselves. And as humans, just as we've been fighting for time immemorial, we've always been resilient, we've always been a force for change, and we are always going to be exactly that. Thank you all very much, House of Poderosa. Thank you very much for this opportunity. And from Ghana, I want to say, Midamudinase.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. All of you have been incredible. And as Helio said, just to stress this enough, you taking the time going through all of this, it's an honor to have you here. And we are honored to even be able to help. And unfortunately, there's not more that we can do from here, but it's our pleasure to be doing whatever is possible for us to do. So thank you, everyone.